Hello everyone, thanks for joining me on the first ever Sleeper podcast. I'm absolutely buzzing to get this going. The original inspiration for Sleeper was during a rite of passage trip to Whistler Bike Park in 2017. Some random shredder on A-Line did a no-foot can and I overheard someone exclaiming that he's a sleeper. What they meant was that you wouldn't assume that he was that rad. He might have looked completely normal, whatever that means. Maybe he was just quiet. But he got on the bike and turned into a superhero. I thought about how many sleepers I know, unassuming characters that are low-key legends. I'm sure you know many yourself, as the mountain bike community is absolutely full of them. I didn't want to let it all slip through the net, condemning their stories to be slept on forever. I wanted to capture at least some of the magic I was seeing, reflecting it back on itself, revealing it. So, working as a plumber, a really bad plumber, I saved up for a camera and created Sleeper. This podcast is an extension of that core idea. The aim is to provide an honest platform for the many weird and wonderful characters found in mountain biking, admittedly with an extra soft spot for downhill racing, exploring wider themes of health, performance, psychology, art, life, love. I hope to provide understanding and entertainment. We're beginning in my immediate circle and working outwards. I'm grateful to have some close relationships with some amazingly talented and ambitious souls. Reece has been a consistent source of inspiration throughout my life. His conviction to aim high is infectious, and it created an atmosphere where we knew anything was possible. You will hear us start from the start, revealing our childhood upbringing, inspirations, influences, struggles, and the psychology behind Reece's unfathomable competitiveness and drive throughout his life and career. So without further ado, I'll stop spraffing now. This is the first ever Sleeper podcast with Reece Wilson.
Yes.
Right, we're going. Here we are.
Here we are.
Number one. I wanted to kind of give people context as to why you're the first person here, and just us in general.
Yeah, nothing to do with the fact that I'd basically live here, sitting in this seat.
Exactly.
Second home.
My heart rate's elevated.
I'm nervous.
I'm nervous that we're going. But yeah, no, I wanted to just explain the first time that we ever sort of seen each other in general and just genuinely start from the start. For me at least, I was living in the city, 7 years old, I believe. Then I moved down to this tiny little village, little tiny primary school. There's only 60 people in this primary school. It's absolutely tiny. And I'm trying to make friends. And I'm kind of looking around and I noticed that you're cutting about, you're causing a wee bit of trouble, which I kind of...
Bit of ruckus.
I was kind of noticed and was almost attracted to that energy of just that you were just absolutely causing a ruckus. And yeah, I remember specifically because my dad had motorcycles when we were in Musselburgh, but I didn't know about motocross at all. And then I remember we got chatting and you said at one point that you had a motorbike. And I was like, no, you don't. Kids don't.
What a line for?
Kids don't have motorcycles. Children are not allowed motorcycles. And you're like, no, come around to mine after school and I'll show you. So sure enough, head round to yours after school. And there's this 65 sat. I just remember it so vividly because it was just like a dream. It was a beautiful summer's day.
Yeah.
Warm as, and there it was a 65cc. It was literally dripping because it had just been washed. Yeah. And I was just absolutely gobsmacked. What?
Bike's dripping, you're dripping.
I was like, this is the guy. Show. This is my guy. Period.
I guess I feel guilty now after you saying that because I can't really, any first meetings with people, anybody, I can't really seem to remember. Now that you've said that, me trying to think back, other than Gavin, who was, pulled his pants down and moonied us basically and ran away at 8 years old, that was the only one, the first introduction to a person that I've been it stuck with me because it was that, ridiculous. I can't actually remember the first ever day we met like that. If that's the first day, you coming along, I can't really remember any of that, which is crazy. Maybe it's just introduces so many people as a child
blurry.
With dad. I have no idea, but
it's all just a blur. But I just remember that specifically. It was a bit more dramatic for me, trying to make friends in a new environment, whereas it was just same for you, and you were just showing this kid. But
I guess some of the first memories are just coming along here when you guys, well, actually, be going to the church.
yeah, I used to live in a church.
Yeah, that was it was a cool house in the village as well. That was like a really cool house in the village. I'd never been in before. Where do you live? The church. No way. Got to go inside the church. So I guess that was pretty cool. You know, these guys that have just moved into the village, and your dad had was it an R1 at the time?
Yeah, like a Fireblade or an R1 or something like that.
There was something sat at the door, so when you walked in, the front door of the church was just like this, an R1 or Fireblade or something sitting, absolutely pristine. So then I was kind of like, well, this isn't a normal household. Like nobody has one of these just chilling at the front door for no reason. So, and then obviously you tell me stories about him being a maniac wheelier. My dad being the same as a youngster. He was just like a youth that loved motorbikes on the road and absolutely loved wheelies, is known in our area and the Scottish borders for being like a wheelie master when he was a kid, and your dad was the same but up in Edinburgh way. So yeah, pretty funny how our worlds collided with obviously no plan for me and you, but yeah, that was straight away mountain bikes, motorbikes, wheelies, RC cars.
There's a lot of wheelies.
Climbing, throwing stones, shooting things, absolutely anything we could do. That was when the childhood really began. I guess my earliest memories are you were in them, if you know what I mean. My earliest childhood, it was an age window where you're just starting to remember and being aware of what you're doing,
Totally.
So, yeah.
And we both definitely had that like sort of maniac.
Yeah.
Just as you say, like from our dads both being it's kind of in the blood, and like recently going back to motocross and stuff like that, it's been such a full circle thing. I think kind of for both of us really, because you've not been riding that much motocross.
Yeah.
So it properly is like a full circle scenario. Do you remember, can you describe to people what the game Teddy Bear Bumps is?
I don't know, why did we name everything so stupid?
I don't know,
like,
it's the stupidest
all of our
name.
Games had the stupidest names, but I guess that's why.
We literally were children.
They were hilarious. That was so funny. So Teddy Bear Bumps was this game where you would sit down, I guess because you kind of looked like a teddy bear sat down on a scooter, and I've always
the deck of a scooter.
On the deck of a scooter, yeah. So your bum would be like hard against the back wheel. Your feet would be like perched, basically, just your heels. And if you didn't have poor flexibility, you were really struggling. But if you had good flexibility, you can kind of get all your feet on, hands up in the air, and you have to like push off. We need animations. You had to push off with your heels, and you got like I think one push off the wall.
Yeah,
and there was like 3 or 4 different start lines, and each start line had a slightly smoother bit or a rougher bit. So it was like qualifying from the heat before really mattered. We'd like sit down, scoot, and then you basically hell bombed on a scooter, sat down. What would we get up to? Maybe 30 kilometers an hour at the fastest if we were lucky. It's not it wasn't crazy fast, at really high running speed, but enough that if you washed out or fell off your scooter and landed on your bum, it was straight to tarmac. Like it was pretty painful.
A lot of jeans were ripped.
A lot of pairs of jeans ripped off. And that was basically the aim of the game. And then as we got better at it, we got more violent, and we just started trying to take each other out. Like it was like motocross but on scooters. Basically everything we done was to emulate motocross at some point, and like that whole
it was
just carnage, just crashed into each other. So that was Teddy Bear Bumps. That was hours and hours and hours of our life.
There was also just basic stuff like a figure of 8 or the circle game where it was just a circle, but the aim of the game was to overtake the person and also take them out as well.
Yeah.
Like, God.
Again, hours and hours of cycling around in a circle. You think if somebody told you to do it now, like if I got told by my coach, right, you're just cycling around in circles today for like 4 hours with just cans of Coke or cans of energy and some chewing gum like we used to do, you'd laugh and think it was taking the mick. But it was brilliant. That was such a good use of our time, or how we saw it anyway.
And there was a lot of trampolining, that sort of stuff as well.
Thousands of hours of trampoline and jumping off the shed roofs. Like, wait till your parents went out, like it was for me, because Mum hated us walking on the shed roof. Wait till my parents are out. Mum's going to be out for 2 hours. Everybody around to Reece's house jumping off the shed roof. Full like 5-star frog splash onto the trampoline, trying to like take each other out. It was absolute carnage.
This is not behavior to be encouraged.
It absolutely is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, it's what you should do.
It's also our inspiration when you think about it. What were some of the key films that we watched? Because I know I know what we're
Well,
up
you
to.
introduced me to Crusty Demons, but I guess I would have introduced you to Travis Pastrana. You maybe knew him beforehand.
I hadn't watched Nitro Circus
Right,
before
okay.
you.
So I was Nitro Circus, you were more Crusty Demons.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of how it went. I was, everybody knows Travis Pastrana now, like that kind of 199, really nice, friendly kid, but just doing insane stuff on motocross bikes and anything, driving cars, jumping stuff, trampolines, foam pits, fireworks. It was just crazy. But because it was motorbikes and I could buy the DVDs at motocross races, because my mum wouldn't let me, if it said 16 on the box, whether it was a video game or a DVD, it wasn't happening if I wasn't 16. 18, like all of the good games and all the good movies were 16 plus or 18. So Travis Pastrana was pretty much all I could get my hands on and what my parents would actually buy me. So yeah, I ended up watching, God, hours. Every single DVD I must have watched till the disc was knackered, and that was my upbringing. That was my motivation, my inspiration to be a bit of a hooligan.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. My parents just let me wild with all the video games.
No, I think that's why when I met you, I was like, this is sweet. I get to escape from my house and play all of these video games that I know I'm not allowed to.
But at the same time, like my parents were, I guess, a little bit more protective in the traditional way, whereas yours just kind of let you run completely wild almost.
Yeah. Feral. We were more like feral cats.
But like during this period of time, and since 6 years old, you're doing a ton of motocross racing.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, I mean, me and you were both similar in high school, weren't we? Like just sports, we seemed to be able to turn ourselves to any sport and have a pretty good idea straight away. Like you can't teach. It's that thing that you can't teach. You're just sport people and athletes just tend to be good at sport, like everything. I enjoyed all form of sport. I played football a lot through primary school. That was pretty much the only sport we could play at primary school. So that was lunchtimes and breaks sorted was football with all the boys. And that kind of I guess, 6 years old, I got put on a motocross bike. So that was base setting for me was extreme adrenaline from a very, very young age. So that almost determined what I wanted to do after that, because anything that didn't have that risk of severe injury or like severe trouble, I wasn't really, it didn't give me the buzz. It was almost like the risk is what I was doing it for. It wasn't actually for the pleasure of doing the activity. And that's what I think sticking a child on a motocross bike really does to them at the end of the day. It's, your fight or flight is so much higher than everybody else's that it kind of numbs other sports. And football eventually just became boring to me. I was like, I'm relying too much on other people. It's not, they're taking away my chance to score or to win the game so I didn't like that team aspect in a sense. Gymnastics, we both absolutely love gymnastics. But yeah, just nothing could take me away from motocross. If there was a party on at weekends from school, I would miss it and I would be away riding motocross. If there was a football game on, even though I'd done the training all week, I'd go and race motocross. Just nothing got in the way of motocross from 6 years old until, God, what was that, 17 or 18. So that was my whole childhood basically was dedicated to riding motocross. Two weekends a year, all over the country, all over the world at points. So yeah, crazy.
That's a mad way to grow up. Like it's shown now, like with people like free solo, what's his name, Alex Honnold, and they did a scan on his brain. Then the amygdala is like a part of your brain that's like the fight or flight, the thing that kind of makes you nervous or whatever. So like from a young age, your amygdala's getting lit up, and so everything else is just not giving you that like same sort of energy as motocross was giving you. And that like also hyper competitive, hyper like hierarchy, gnarly characters in motocross as well.
I mean, my family, really, it's if you're not aware, if you don't know my family, you land in the house on the wrong day, you could probably get quite a fright. Like it's an interesting environment. And it was a wild environment to grow up as a kid. I always went to other people's houses and was just like, we are so not normal. Like when I go back to my house, there's nothing normal about our family in the best way possible. But
oh, I absolutely love the kind of wild nature of your household. How would you describe to people your dad? Because he's the kind of main influence on on that initial part of your life, really.
Ur Wally. Honestly, it'll probably take me years and years after my dad passes to really truly be able to take the time and look back and understand his character, because he's got so much going on. I've still never met anybody in my life that knows as many people as he does. Walking anywhere, and I mean anywhere in the world, you take that man and you walk around for a period of an hour, he'll bump into somebody that he knows. It's absolutely insane. It really is. He's so well connected, just due to being so many places in his life and doing so much. That generation before us, that they didn't have phones, didn't have the internet, didn't have YouTube, like didn't have all that time to just sit in your house on your own wasting. That all of that time was spent out meeting people. And you can really tell now when you hang out with an older generation that was into socializing, just loved social attraction. He was a bit of a show. He was definitely a show off. I've definitely gotten that from him as well. Likes to be a crowd pleaser, and too much. Honestly, I couldn't give you individual words that would sum him up, because he's just, he was a superhero all my life as a kid, looking up to him. From 6 years old, he's a brilliant motocross rider. He's overbraced these days. He's got too many braces going on, but he's sick. He's coming on for 60 now, so I'll let him off. He's kind of passing his sell by date as far as performance on a motocross bike goes. But as a kid, he had amazing style, and he always had his bikes looking real sweet. He always had the best of bikes, and yeah, it's an amazing man. I really can't pick him apart much, really.
Like, not scared is how I'd describe your dad, of like speaking to anyone, as you say, just getting stuff done, like his energy just to get stuff done. Like, and another thing to mention is that he's like a really talented engineer.
Yeah. Like,
to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. Like, there's no amount of Googling that could get you even close to the amount of experience that he's had.
Yeah.
Welding things, putting things together, fixing problems.
Yeah, I mean, I probably overlooked the biggest part about his character is the fact he's an engineer. Yeah, he's if he could have a puzzle to solve every single day, he'd be the happiest man on the planet. And he'd be even happier if he had a group around him that said, you can't do that, like you won't be able to fix that.
That's it.
He's done. And that's where I kind of got that, I said it in the Flying Scotsman, that's where I kind of got that attitude of like, when people say you can't do that, and you're kind of looking at it knowing in your head, I think I can do that. Like, I know how that needs to be done. And that's my dad through and through. Is like, somebody will come in the workshop, I've been to this guy up the street, I've been to that guy, this guy, they said it's a waste of time, you can't fix it. My dad's straight, right, leave it with me, come back in 4 hours. Like, he loves that stuff. And he does. He's yet to see him fail with anything. I think one bike ever, and that was RC's 250 Honda.
That was Rory Cunningham's. Rory Cunningham's 250.
Never, ever, ever buy a 250 Honda after that, is what he told me. I mean, you went and bought one. There's nothing wrong with it. What age was it? Was it an 07 maybe?
I think it was older.
That?
We'll need confirmation. We'll get
confirmation.
We'll get Rory on the podcast and confirm.
We need facts for that. But that was a hellhole of a bike. God knows what was wrong with that. But that's the only thing that's ever really beat my dad. I think he actually got it running and said to Rory, "Get that my garage and never bring it back to me again. Like, that's it. I'm done with it." And a week or two later, I don't know if it broke down again, and then Rory sold it. I have no idea, but anything else in the world, and you'll vouch for that, it can fix. It can be anywhere in the middle of a muddy field with nothing, no tools, and he just breaks into this caveman ability to just find tools and make tools and fix things. And you see his hands and his knuckles and his wrists, like it's like he's used them as forehammers for his whole life. He's mental. He's absolutely. He needs a documentary, if we're honest.
He does. I describe him to people as like, he is where the buck stops.
Yeah.
Like, he's the absolute last resort for people. Like, what do you think that kind of did to your psychology? Did that maybe make you feel like, in a way, you can get anything done?
Yeah, I mean, there was never no excuses. Was something we always had as a young age. I'm pretty sure I've told this story before, but school sports day, when I was, how old would you be? Still in primary school, you'd be sub 10, so 8, 9, 10 years old maybe, heading to school sports day, and he went down on one knee at the back door, before I went to school. It was like a big moment. He grabbed both my shoulders. He said, "Now, Reece, remember, it's not about the taking part, it's about the winning." And like, really shook me, and I was like, left to go to school. I stomped through that Benno and I was gonna win, There was nothing getting in my way. So absolutely done, and Mum was the same. Like, I'm only talking about Dad here. Mum is exactly the same. They're both hardcore, no excuses. If you want it, go out and get it sort of characters. So yeah, we've been around that our whole lives, and as kids falling over. Mum pretty much brought us up because Dad was working all the time. Mum kind of sacrificed her whole upbringing, or her life really. You know, all her hobbies. She was a really good diver. She was an underwater diving model. She was a lifeguard at swimming pool. Like, she'd done loads of stuff, but loved swimming. Anyway, kids came along. You know, she wanted kids real bad. So did Dad, but Dad went to work, made the money, Mum stayed at home, looked after the kids. So a lot of that kind of real base foundation childhood stuff came from Mum, like the manners and being polite and respectful and picking up your litter and that kind of, like, I feel like that's real basic stuff that you learn at a young age. That all came from Mum. But again, she was that real hardcore, like, you trip, you blow a knee out in the car park, you know, she'd look at it, give it a wee quick rub and a slap and be like, come on, get on with it, you know, just forget about it. Like, there was no messing, there was no pussyfooting around, as she would call it, or nicey treatment if it wasn't required. If you're ill, go to your bed, have a sleep, you know what I mean? There was no, definitely didn't get mollycoddled as a kid. It was hardcore. So I'm really thankful for that now, because it really does help you block out those things that are like, you know, there's nothing wrong, just
don't really matter.
It doesn't matter, you can ignore it, move on, which most scratches on your knees and stuff like that are. You know, a lot of parents, I think, overprotect kids.
And we're kind of the last of the kids that grew up without the phones as well, which I think I'm so grateful for that. Like, we were all very late. Our parents both introduced us super late to phones. I think it was 16 before we had anything like that. And I remember it's like Snapchat was already out by the time I got a phone. So that's like pretty late. And I'm so grateful for that, because just dicking around is what it's all about, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting a lot softer in upbringing, and it's not helping them later on.
Yeah,
it's interesting. How would you kind of describe your journey through high school?
I mean, I kind of hated primary school. I guess I was too young to realise the emotions I was feeling was hatred towards the school system. But
like, in general, we both struggle with authority.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, being told what to do.
Yeah.
I guess that's that feral upbringing. Like, I was never really told what to do at home. I was told what I wasn't allowed to do, like what was vital not to do. But really, I was allowed to do it. As long if I was outside and I wasn't bothering my mum, kind of good to go, you know. It was green lights on anything as long as the police didn't turn up at the door. So
still, like, respect your elders.
Of course, yeah. As I said before, there was nothing but respect and manners, and anything. Anybody that hangs around with us, I think, will agree with that. Like, we are very well mannered people. Like, parents have done a fantastic job. But yeah, when it came to school, just hated the whole structure of it, and that you have to sit down at this time and you have to do this at that exact time. And for somebody like me that just numbers, I mean, maths can just go away, take a long walk into the sea and never come back for me. I absolutely can't stand maths, but I found a way to get by, you know, thank God for phones and calculators.
Yeah, you were good up to a point. Like, you can add and subtract, but when it came to, like, algebra.
I mean, algebra, but that was just school. That was just school, wasn't it? Once you got to an age where you kind of realised everybody's only really doing enough to get by here. Like, once I clocked onto that, I was like, yep, I don't feel like I'm going to need any of this when I leave school. Like, I've hung out with my dad, and every summer holidays for 6 weeks, I would pretty much go and work with my dad. And it was either him guilt tripping me into, you know, all the money he's spending on motocross, which is fair enough, or me saying I wanted something new, and he'd be like, right, fine, work the whole summer and you can, you know, pay for yourself. So I spent so long in that working environment of, like, joiners, builders, engineers, mechanics, everybody, and every single character that rolled into that workshop had the same view with school, like, hated it, really struggled. And there's loads of people, multi-million-pound, you know, building businesses, joinery businesses, the people that my dad had coming into the workshop, and not a single one of them could have said a nice thing about their time at school. Like, they all really struggled with it. So I guess I made the connection pretty early on that academically, you don't need to be the smartest in the classroom to leave school and have a chance at actually doing something with your life. And almost that kind of ruined high school for me. As soon as I clicked onto that, I just thought, well, sweet, I'm just going to sit at the back of the class and, you know, just totally turned a blind eye, found a way out of doing hard work. Do I regret it? Yes, in a way. I do, you know. It would have been nice to have proven to myself what I could have achieved at high school had I had full attention on it. But I think, as everybody will know from high school, you're just this ball of flesh and emotion that can't really concentrate on anything at any particular time. You know, you're just caught up in the high school emotions of girls and boys and parties. And
well, that's it. If you were to say something positive about it, it's it's social calibration. You're basically interacting with all these other different types of people, and socializing is never going to be as gnarly as it is in school, like how savage people are to each other.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the argument for going to school, even if it's not your thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of do it. Like you said, there's definitely the social aspect of it. You have to go there. You have to talk to people. Some people you don't like, you have to sit in a classroom with them. You have to get on. It's like there's social skills that you get from going to school that are vital. Are the qualifications that you walk away from it vital to how your life goes on? No, I genuinely don't think that's true. I think you can go on and do whatever you want, regardless of what your school career says. You know, if you've got enough passion for whatever it is, you can go and crack on. So I think, realised that pretty quick and just kind of went poo-poo to high school. It's just, you know, the fun parts, PE, woodwork, metalwork, hospitality. You know, there was classes that I enjoyed because I was good at them. Got stuck into them, and then the rest of them I just could not wait to leave. Exams, kind of almost got all of them done.
Yeah, you missed your exams. That's actually quite a...
Yeah. Shout out Lauren Moffat. Was it Lauren Moffat? I think it was. I'll never forget the day. I could almost walk you to the exact spot at Glencoe Car Park. Actually, no, it was Caitlin McGackie.
Glencoe.
I take it back. It was Caitlin McGackie. I was in Glencoe Car Park and I could draw an X marks the spot for where I was stood when I pulled out my phone, and she had texted me saying, "Where are you, Reece?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm at Glencoe, you know, the Scottish Downhill Association race." This was on like a Friday. I had gotten my exams mixed up. So English, I was actually really quite good at English on storytelling. English, grammar, punctuation, terrible. But I could put a good storyline down. I've no idea how it worked. Anyway, I got asked to do higher English, and I wasn't supposed to. It was only supposed to be like a standard grade, which is like a thing below. And then about a week before our exams, I ended up doing a higher paper, and I would have passed had it been an exam, like it was like a practice paper. I would have passed, and it would have been a pretty good score. So the English teacher was like, "Right, let's do both. You know, I think you can maybe do both exams." Anyway, long story short, got my dates mixed up. I should have been at my exam on the Friday. Me and Dad had left at about 10 o'clock in the morning to truck up to Glencoe SDA, because that year was the first year I had mixed motocross and downhill. I was trying to do them both. It was like a really, really busy year. And anyway, I'm standing in the car park, you know, about to go up for practice, and got a text at like 9:45 in the morning going, "Where are you? You're supposed to be at your exam." And my heart just dropped out my chest, just kind of burst into tears. Had to go and find somewhere like I was genuinely super emotional, because it was one of the only exams that, not the only ones, but out of all the ones that I really struggled with, like maths, English, history, modern studies, you know, all those righty, numbery letter ones, that was the one I was going to do pretty well in, and I missed it. So
brutal.
Absolutely furious. Phoned my mum, and just like, just 10, 15 seconds of silence, and then she just called me a effing idiot, I'm sure, and she was like, "Well, there's nothing you can do now." And I was like, "Nope, there isn't." Hindsight, I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
Yeah, racing an SDA.
Racing my downhill bike is exactly where I was meant to be. So it is funny, hindsight looking back, but at the time, oh my God, I wanted the world to open up and swallow me. I thought I'd made the biggest mistake ever.
I guess that's a perfect segue to go into when, well, you discovered mountain biking, because I didn't know it was a thing at all. And then, so you found a video, correct me if I'm wrong, and it was the, if only every mountain bike video was filmed like this.
Uh-huh.
And it was what were their names? We need to get their names.
Oh,
like Norby.
my name Norby, and that's a party on the trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is all their names? Scott Voltage, Kona.
Yeah. But like the
video, boys at the time.
The video title was "If Only Every Mountain Bike Video Was Filmed Like This."
Yeah.
And you had it on an iPod Touch.
Mm-hmm.
And you came up to me in school, and like during like canteen hours, and showed me this video, and I was just like, "What?" Like, no idea it was a thing. The big X cross,
yeah.
like them crossing over and stuff. We just thought it was the coolest looking thing ever, and we had bicycles, so we just grabbed them and went out the next again day. It would probably be on those little DMR hardtails that we had. And went and started building our own version of what we saw. So as far as I can tell, you found it via the internet.
Wow.
And then that was it.
I think my original memory of downhill is actually a lot more core and old school than that. It was my mum was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer when we were kind of young, and it didn't really look very good at the time. And I remember them, kind of mum and dad sat me and my two sisters down and basically said, your mum's got cancer. It's pretty bad. We don't really know what the future holds. Like we were, I don't know what we were, honestly, between 8 and 10 maybe. I have no idea, but pretty young, but old enough to know what was going on. So anyway, we ended up going, I think it was a bit of like a, fuck it, let's do everything now whilst we can sort of thing. It kind of spurred one of those like stuff that you're not here forever sort of mindsets into my parents. Anyway, so we somehow ended up at Fort William. I need to have my dad in here to find out how we exactly ended up there, but we ended up at Fort William on a World Cup. The only memory I have of that whole weekend is stood at almost at the very finish, but where you would call the offbeat wall. It's like this big roller. You come over what used to be the Tissot jump. It's like the Scotland Arch jump now or whatever. And then you go along and there's like a fadeaway roller that's super, super steep. It's not vert, but it is so steep. You can barely walk down it. Stood next to that, kind of tucked up in the bushes, and there was fans everywhere. It was really quiet and not really much happening. And you just hear the whistles, the whole crowd roar. And the video is on YouTube, I'm sure, of the camera guy must have been stood like right next to me because you can see the exact angle. And some guy came over that, went pretty deep, and his front tire kind of blew off, front wheel buckled at the bottom, veered into the right, and just had this massive, like, it was like a silverback gorilla had just went sprinting into the trees. When you hear all that, there's leaves falling and the trees are all shaking, people screaming, like it was insane. It was like somebody's just jumped off a 60-foot building on a mountain bike and then just exploded into the trees. Like, could not believe it for the life of me. And that memory is just melted into my brain, like burnt into there. And that was my first introduction to downhill. But then I was obviously young enough and enough going on in my life that I kind of forgot about that, because then it was until about that time, it was about in high school when I'd been riding motocross. And at the motocross, anybody that knows that goes to Scottish motocross, at nights all the kids get their bikes out, and you just pedal around, you make ruts if you're at a sand track, or you build little doubles and you jump your friends or crash into each other, whatever. We had never ending activities to do on a mountain bike at a motocross race. So that, again, introduced me into this kind of newer level of hardtails and BMXs, and that all collided with you and Gordon in high school and a friend group that were also knew about mountain biking, and off we went from there. So yeah, really, it was a strange introduction, I guess, for us.
This is about the time that you showed me that video, which is, I think, like the spark of the inspiration that we got to actually go out and try and do mountain biking.
Yeah.
Was at ages 16, as far as I know.
Right, okay.
So that's pretty late to discover a sport.
Yeah.
And that was the 2012 was the year.
Were we 16 in 2012?
We were 16 in 2012. Yeah, we're pretty old now, bro.
Actually, have you fact checked that? I don't believe that.
We're both 26 years old. We're also freakishly within 3 days of each other's birthday as well.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
But yeah,
yeah.
Like, so for it to
7-11.
be that late, it's almost like you'd be tempted to thinking it's too late.
Yeah.
To get into this sport or to to make anything from it.
I mean, God, at that point, I'd pretty much had a 10-year career of racing motocross like a semi-professional, every single weekend, leaving on Friday mornings, racing Saturday, Sunday, coming back fucking 11, 12, 1 in the morning on a Sunday night and back to school on a Monday since 6 years old. It was, I'd done a lot. So I think for me, it was almost just it was something refreshing. And not only that, it was a refreshing group of people, because you were there. Angus Hardy was introduced to us at that point because he went to Earlston High School. Blair Aitchison, we got introduced to this whole, like, the next town over, the Earlston Massive. And yeah, high school was a massive turning point for us. Like, once we got introduced to it, then it almost felt like the whole lot just fell on top of us. Like, there was people coming from all angles that knew about mountain biking, and everybody seemed to want to do it around us or did it around us. And obviously we had Glen Tress, which is massive in Scotland. Everybody I've been to Glen Tress before. As soon as you mention mountain biking, it's like everybody's been there at least once to ride a mountain bike. Even if you've got no interest in bikes at all, it's the place you go. So it really did. It just fell on top of us. It was a bit of an avalanche after that. It got going pretty quick.
Since you were 16, you were approaching the end of your high school career as well. Because you get the option to leave in fourth year, which is... there's an English equivalent, the fourth year of being in high school.
Yeah.
You get the opportunity to leave, and most people go to college and study a trade that are leaving in fourth year because of the same people you described before that are not fussed about academia. So you dropped out in fourth year or was it fifth year?
It was 5th year.
It was 5th, so you did stay for an extra year.
I stayed for 1.
That makes more sense, because then I stayed on to 6th year because I was academically all right and felt...
Yeah, the high school wanted you back.
Yeah, they like, you know...
You weren't a black mark.
I felt as though I should, from like parental pressures or whatever, you just feel like you should stay. So I stayed in high school and you went. What did you do?
That was a really crazy time, a really stressful time for me, because like I just said, I missed an English exam. My exam results really weren't great. I didn't have much to go by. The school, I mean, I guess I don't know how school works, but if I was to take a complete guess, if your scores aren't great and they're hindering what the school as a whole could achieve, they kind of want you out the door because it doesn't look great for the school. That's really the feeling I got was, okay, you're more of a smudge on the score results here. You'd be better at college. You're maybe, and then they use the excuse that you're not really very good at high school, which is absolutely true. I was making a total meal of it. Like, I didn't want to be there. But at the same time, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my future. And the same as every single kid, like, you get all this pressure piled on you. Choose your exams, and your exams have to be chosen on what you want to do for the rest of your life at 16, 17 years old. Like, that's absolutely unfathomable for most kids. You just can't do that. So I was sat there with the teachers kind of going, well, right, what are you going to do? I had no idea what I actually wanted to do. Bar riding bikes. That's all I wanted to do. And I always remember I used to tell them, I had this had a teacher, Miss Lawrence, and she can always used to try and say, you know, come on, Reece, maybe joinery, you know, you're quite good at that. Your dad's good at engineering, plumbing. And I was good at all of these things, but I didn't want to do them. I wanted to ride my bike. And this went on for weeks and weeks, me like putting it off at school, missing meetings and stuff to go down and select what my future career was going to be. And then at that moment, Rory got introduced to my dad with this hell-bent 250 that just would not start.
This Honda is a significant part.
It really is, yeah.
In your life.
It really was. So he couldn't get it fixed, and due to it's the Borders. If you know the Borders, everybody knows everybody. And like I said before, everybody knew my dad. So somebody had told Rory to go and see my dad, and I believe it was Rory's dad. Had said, go and see Ian, he'll get it fixed. So he brought it in. Dad said, no bother, you know, got talking to him. Rory's like, oh, I'm a World Cup downhill mountain biker. And Dad's like, oh, don't really know what that is, but, you know, sweet, sounds cool. So I took the bike home and then came home and told me, oh, I had this guy in today. So I was straight on Facebook, little kid as I am. Oh my God, he travels the world. He's from Stow. Like, just absolutely fanboyed the life out of him, like tagging him and everything on Facebook. And that kind of changed the whole mindset for me. So then I remember going back to school like the next again week and just being, I'm going to be a professional cyclist, and telling the teachers I'm going to be a professional cyclist. Like, that's exactly what I'm going to be. And Miss Lawrence told me, like, Reece, I think you should maybe pick something a little bit more realistic. And that quote for quote, that was what she said. And I remember sitting there with my pencil, like, just wanted to stab a hole in the paper and run out of the room, like, don't you tell me what to do. I'm going to be a professional cyclist. And that was it. From there on, that whole last year of high school and 5th year, I was just waiting to leave. And I set a plan that I was going to go to the Borders College because I went out on a ride with Rory Cunningham. That was as payment to my dad for fixing or trying to fix his bike, was take my son out. So Rory said, right, I'll take him out. I'll get my bike. We'll hire my bike for the local bike shop, and we'll take him out for a run. And first run, stone cold, never been on a mountain bike in my life, never been on a mountain bike track in my life, frozen cold Boxing Day ride or something. Rory was like, right, on you go first. So I just cracked on. Absolutely amazing. Like, just such a thrill. Had such a good time. Got to the bottom of the run, turned round, big grinner on my face, and Rory was like really silent, and he's laughing and laughing. Anyone that knows Rory's like, I'll know his face and understand him. And he was like, he kept pausing and looking at me and then laughing again. And he said that was the wildest, most out of control thing I've ever seen. But he said, holy fuck, that was fast. He was like, I think we can actually do something with that. Like, you've got the one thing that you can't teach, and that's like commitment, that like just willing to go for it, you know, and just be at it straight away. So that was pretty much it. I kind of saw the look on his face and was like, well, he's a professional cyclist, surely knows what somebody that's good on one looks like. He's just told me I'm pretty damn fast, although it was very ugly. But he just also told me he can fix that. So then in my eyes, I was like, boom, we're on. It's happening. This is it. I'm going to be a professional cyclist. And that was that. He told me about a Borders College-based mountain biking course at Galashiels that was just along from my dad's workshop. So I kind of knew all about it. My dad had made some machinery for the rugby course in there the years previous. So I'd got introduced to some of the staff, and yeah, I ended up applying for a mechanics course just to keep everybody else, the high school, happy, keep my dad happy. even though my dad kind of knew what was going to happen. And then, the mountain bike course obviously accepted me. I was super keen to go. Rory was really keen to have me. I think it was quite hard for Rory to convince Andy Barlow and Chris at the time, because they were like, well, we've never heard of him. Why should we? It's the same application as everybody else. Anyway, I turned up for my, what would you call it?
Like your interview,
yeah. It's like a riding interview, I guess. You go and hang out with them for the day and do some bike riding, and they can just get a base on whether you're going to kill yourself. If you're going to be dangerous, you're probably not best to be on there. But yeah, and I think Andy saw enough and was like, you know what, he's no worse than anybody else here, so we might as well have him on. And that was the start for me. That was the start. 2 years later, only I was British champion. So it was a bit of a, just one of those complete and utter accident over 2 years. And that's where we ended up. The strangest story.
Yeah, I mean, so I stay on and I'm extremely jealous because like you're at this mountain biking course doing mountain biking and I just can't even fathom it. But I was like good enough at education where I felt as though going to a mountain biking course was like kind of like it was being in my brain from what I was getting fed by like my parents and stuff, waste of time.
Yeah.
Like not. So I eventually convinced my parents that I could do 1 year. So I come on for the second year of it and it was just like phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been fitter since,
Yeah.
just riding twice a week. Such an amazing facility. And
like-minded people. It's just a group
like-minded
of
people.
15, 20 years all trying to do the same thing.
Brilliant. Rewind a little bit. Can you remember your first downhill race?
Yeah, the mini downhills. I remember being sat preparation for them. Me and you and Angus sat in the library at high school, and we're looking up Cal McGee, who was also in our high school at the time. We had a lot of animosity there. There was some tension.
Yeah, actually, this explain like that. How difficult it was for you to transition from a moto, being able to take somebody out, people taking you out, like full contact, like a bit of stuff going on in the pits, animosity being normal, to then going over to mountain biking. Because I'm sure lots of people that have interacted with you on that come up would have felt a bit of friction from you. It's a good time to explain that, like,
Yeah,
you were just bringing that moto energy over, and that must have been kind of weird.
Yeah, hindsight, I would like to. I don't just want to put the blame on somebody else, but at the same time, I don't want to take the blame because it was my upbringing from such a young age. The way my parents taught me to be and think, in order to, it's a big bad world. It's not fair. It really isn't fair. That is the reality of it, and that was their upbringing. That the ones who are fucking mean and get stuck in are the ones that get what they want to an extent, and that wasn't, don't take that as like, oh my God, they taught them to be really mean. It wasn't like that. It was just the sports that we were into. If you're going to go and do it, you're going to win, and if other people, for me in motocross, there's a gate of 40 of you and you can directly affect someone else's race. I can crash into somebody, knock them off the track, and I can win the race. Therefore, you are a direct competitor for me, and mountain biking isn't that. It's a clock. It's just on your own, which took me forever to get over. And I've never really, I wouldn't say I've fully gotten over it. I'm still I'm a fierce competitor. Like, I wouldn't like to go against myself. I do like to move people out the way, and that's, you kind of have to be like that. Top guys in a lot of sport are quite mean, and people say selfish in a way, and you do have to be like that to get to the top in sport. It is just the way it is. But I probably took it too far quite a few times with competition that, they weren't really competition, but I was like making, fierce competition all the time because it made it easier for me. If I hated you, it made it easier to compete against you because I could just ignore you. And that was simple, it simplified my life. If I wanted to be friends, if I had to be friends with you and I struggled to get on with you, I find it really hard. I'm trying to balance this fake friendship. So it was easier for me to just go, you know what? No, I don't like any of you. I'm just going to, it's only me out there. And that kept it simple for me in my head. So I think that's kind of what it was. But I don't know. It was definitely quite mean. There was a lot of stuff was quite mean. I look back.
No, it's a fun insight because, I guess people are expected to be so like polite and stuff all the time. But as you say, it's sometimes necessary to almost create an enemy in order for you to get that whatever that is in order to be able to defeat someone, because otherwise it's just you and you. So
yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, there's probably a lot of rugby players and stuff. For me, coming from motocross was like going from a rugby field where you're onside. I wouldn't say it's on a team. Imagine you just stood on your own and there's a whole enemy team facing you. That's what it felt like riding motocross. You know, you've got however many other guys pointing at you, angry faces, ready to have your head off. And it's you against all of them. And then going to downhill was the opposite. It was like me stood on the line looking up and there being nobody there. And now the new aim of the game is just to get to the other end as fast as you can and lay the ball down. But there's no obstacles in between, you know, there's not like a gauge, there wasn't a mark. You know, if I got a bad start in a motocross race, you can clearly see the people in front of you and you can clearly see how far you're going to have to go in order to win the race. On downhill or mountain biking in general, most sports and most aspects of mountain biking, you haven't got a clue. Like you're just, you know, you're riding down in La La Land, just guessing whether you're going fast or not. And you had to wait until you crossed the line and everybody else crossed the line before you could actually get a result. So to begin with, I was like, it was just an annoying position to be in, because I was enjoying riding the bike so much, but I wasn't getting that, like, as soon as you cross the line in a motocross race, you know you've won. You know, you can see yourself, you're feeling yourself winning for, you know, it could be the whole race you could be in the lead for and you're pulling away from second place and you get like 15 minutes of riding around with that winning emotion, and I just didn't get that in downhill. So I was loving riding my mountain bike and racing, but I wasn't enjoying the racing, if you know what I mean. It was really strange to begin with. It took me a long time to separate motocross and downhill into two different things.
But I remember, like, it would just naturally, there would be enemies created that I'm sure it's all water under the bridge now for all those people and whatever. Yeah. But like, it would be to the point where I was just like, oh, at least I'm on this side, you know?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of people that I would say I would apologize, but I would like to see I would like to think if I seen them out in public. I think a lot of them I have, you know, I've seen since, and I'd like to think they'd have left the conversation they had with me thinking, he's actually all right. You know, he was just doing what he needed to do. You know, it was like, there are just people will know that if you've ever been up against a fierce competitor before that was beating you every single week and you were just like, they just had you mentally beat. Like, that's kind of what it's about. That's what sport's about. You know, it's head game, it's mental game. And it wasn't that my dad taught me to be mean to other people, because that's not what I was being. He just taught me to want to win so badly that nobody else matters. Like, that's really what it came down to, you know? And yeah, as a kid, I took that on board, and I've wholeheartedly took that on board. Like, it was done, signed and delivered for me. It made perfect sense.
Do you still carry some of that same energy today?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I just feel like I've obviously matured a little bit. You know how to control it. You know when to use it, when not to use it, how much of it to use. But yeah, I have a lot of enjoyment, I would say, out of that kind of like mindset, you know, putting yourself in different mindsets or playing with other people's mindsets. It's a fun game. So
it's fun, like racing is fun to you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a hellhole of a time at the same time, but it's also fun. Yeah. It's everything. That's the point. It's life in a sport, you know. It's like a whole other life added to your life. It's just double life. It's the same stuff, just happening in different situations.
Racing, double life.
Double life.
Double your life.
Rainbows.
By going racing. Yeah, I guess it's just interesting because a lot of racers will not be enjoying racing that much, but like that's just how it's always been. It's actually genuinely fun to you, which is a huge advantage. I'm trying
to sit here thinking maybe 50% of my entire racing career has been like in that. What's that? Only been 10 years now. I think this might be 10 years actually. This might be my 10th year professional. So let's say 5 years of those have been fun, and there's been the other 5. You know, this last year was far from fun. 21, there was definitely moments of fun, but God, there was some moments, sad moments. You know, you have it's 50-50. It's not. It's nobody enjoys it all of the time. Definitely not.
It's part of the thing.
Life. I
guess we could go to. I was going to bring up the kind of 2016. I mean, no, right. Let's keep going. Going from the start. Yeah. Okay, so the first ever downhill race, a mini downhill. How does that go?
Yeah, mini downhill. Mini downhill was really good. Turned up full moto kit, brand new bike for the job. Just worked the whole summer holidays. I was mindset.
in a motocross motorhome. And
Yeah.
it's like the mini downhill.
See, you're an outsider. You're probably better telling that.
Honestly, it was amazing because I got to come and stay in the motorhome,
Yeah.
so I felt so privileged by the whole thing. But yeah, your dad had bought this motorhome for motocross. It was stunning, and we rock up the previous night, even though it's a 1-day event.
We always did that.
Yeah. And sleep over, wake up early in the morning. We're the first person there, and we got a motorhome, and not a soul turns up in a motorhome. Everyone's just turning up in their cars and petting out the back of their boot or whatever. And mini downhill was a push up.
Yeah.
So it's like half of the hill of Inner Leithen if anyone's been to the middle road at Inners. And
Fact of the day, Fire Road.
Yeah, fact of the day, Fire Road. So it was about a minute and a half, and just a really tight track.
Yeah.
I remember it being.
What was the age? What was the oldest? Was it 16? 17?
We'd probably
Like
be
under,
17.
I think it's 17 and unders basically is what it was. It was like a kids. It was
we
a
were.
kids
I remember
downhill
us being at the edge.
We were on the very edge. Yeah.
Very edge of it.
We were the last year.
There was people there that you were competing with legitimately as well, like Callum McGee again. Shout out to Callum McGee.
That was it. We'd been sat in the library the week before, and we're like, we've entered the mini downhill. It's happening. Angus has obviously been to them all. He's raced them all. He's a massive downhill guy, and he's telling me that who the hot shots were, and he's like, Cal McGee and
Angus Hardy, who's now the mechanic for FMD, was just a huge Roots and Rain nerd.
Yeah,
anyone who knows mountain biking in the UK and worldwide will know about Roots and Rain, and he was always trolling Roots and Rain for the results. So
everybody all of the time, what bikes they were riding, where they got them from, like everything. I'm pretty sure, could Ryan have been there? Maybe not. Ross Swinton, like there was a lot. It was just fast local guys, and I think I was always mixing it up with like top 3, top 4. I think I won 1 out of the 3 or 4.
I think you won the overall.
Maybe won the overall, yeah.
So I think the first one you crashed, if I can remember. It was a long time ago.
That does ring a bell. I remember hitting a tree.
Crashing on the first one, which is not surprising, and then you won the other 2. So you won your first mini downhill race.
Yeah, which
was sick.
It did it, yeah. I mean, that seemed to kind of carry the theme through. That was absolutely amazing. But it didn't. It definitely, the wave just got bigger. Like the kind of young cockiness, as you would call it, from the outside just grew even more. I'm like, wait, just take over the world. What's next?
Brilliant.
And that was SDA. So, my dad was the same. He was. The breakup for me, telling my dad that I wasn't going to stop riding motocross, but stop racing motocross. Like, I understand now the impact that had on him, because he's had his boy going with him since I was 6 years old, like 10, 15 years non-stop, me and him going every single race. And then I turn around and go, you know what, Dad, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. After he's put his heart and his soul into it for forever, expecting us just to do this forever. And for me, I got a couple of kind of grim injuries. One of them, I overjumped a tabletop at Peebles at Shiplaw, the old motocross track, if anyone's ever been there, and overjumped, landed on an upslope, and ended up cracking up through my tibia, fibia, and completely through my growth plate. And that ended up giving me like loads of problems through high school. Like my ankle started twisting. I had to go and get an operation to drill out my right knee, drill out the growth plates, get plates in, plates out. Like it was a bit of a piss around. It really kind of knocked the shine off of motocross for me, because it is a hell of a dangerous sport, as Eddie calls it, murder cross. It's a hard sport to string together many, many years without getting serious injuries. So I was I was sick of the injuries, sick of traveling about, and whatever it was, I just lost the love for it. I was just sick of doing it. So I remember telling my dad, you know what, Dad, I want to go and try mountain biking. I remember his face. He was gutted. Like, he was just, what more can I do? I've given you everything for it to be amazing. It is amazing, and it was amazing, but my heart just wasn't in it anymore. I just needed a break from it, and that was that. And my mum was really good. She was, she not calmed my dad down, because he wasn't angry, but I had to kind of explain to him, it's just a kid, you just have to let them be sometimes. If you now go and grab his hand and drag him through something that he doesn't want to do, it's only going to make it worse. Your best bet is to leave them be, let them go and do what they want to do, and hope that they come back to it one day. That's really all you can do. And that's exactly what he done with me, and if it hadn't been for those two deciding, you know what, we'll believe him, we'll trust him, you go and do what you want to do. And like you said, Dad was there, motorhome, every single time, wherever we needed to be, anywhere up and down the country, he was there to support me, and he was into it. There was no, he wasn't sitting sulking in the corner going, oh, I wish we were riding motocross. Like, he loved it. He was charging around the pits, he was making cups of tea for everybody, he was introducing himself. he'd come back. Oh, I've just met Nigel Page. Have you heard of Nigel Page? He runs that team over there. Is this, is that? I made him a cup of tea. Come back. Oh, the Atherton's over there. He's just networking like crazy, and he kind of, I guess, learned to love it as well. He kind of seen what it was all about, and got involved in it as well. So, yeah, a bit of a tangent there. I can't remember what the question was.
Big up Wally, basically. Wally's the man. We were at the mini downhill, but next race,
I guess that paints the scene for how we've ended up at the mini downhill. It's this big motocross setup with little old Reece going, let's give mountain bikes a go, and my dad going, fucking yeah, let's give it a go. So it's pretty wild.
I've got like a Carrera Banshee, which I'll try and find a photo of for the version that's on YouTube. And we're absolutely lapping the shit out of Innerleithen as much as we possibly can. My dad's driving us there for an uplift. Your dad would drive us there every so often, but it must have been, we maybe did like 6 or 7 uplifts at Inners on the lead up to the SDA at Inners.
Yeah.
And the track that we rode, we would push to the top. Anyone that's been to the Inners knows that you don't actually start at the top.
Yeah.
You have to push your bike to the top. So
it's a
every
nasty
time,
little push too.
Yeah, nasty little push, and we would do it every time to lap the Matador Trail, which was kind of like the gnarliest trail with the biggest drops. I think Red Bull built it back in like 03 or something like that. But like biggest drops, biggest jumps, fastest. Mm-hmm. So that was our trail, Matador,
and the longest. We just want the most amount of riding.
Longest as well. And then so we're only lapping this trail, and then we rock up to the first SDA. And what's the track that's taped?
Full Matador.
Full Matador, top to bottom.
Yeah.
We couldn't believe it. We were absolutely
we hadn't even got up the track yet. All the early birds were walking down going, oh, it's just this Matador top to bottom, and me and Max are looking at each other like, we don't even need to walk it. Like, this is us. That was all over it.
That was so good. Can you remember what happened at that race? I can hardly remember.
Honestly, I can't. I have no idea. Wouldn't even have a scooby what my result was. I remember, again, mixing it up. Every weekend was there or thereabouts. If we didn't crash, it was kind of like a top 5, top 3 on the really good races. But yeah, it was tight.
And you'd just been given a trek off of Roy for that race, I remember. I think you did you were on a Saracen for the minis, and then you had just gotten a loan of one of Trek's Rudy Cunningham's old Treks.
Yeah, so
for the ISTA.
Rudy rode for Alpine Bikes that year because it was like I think he had Rocky Mountain the previous year. Rocky Mountain Maxis which was like a really big team. Roy had a really good year, and I think the team folded pretty abruptly, like last minute on him. So he ended up getting a deal with the local bike shop, which was Alpine Bikes, because they stocked Trek and Fox and Pot clothing. So he ended up being on this kind of little UK setup and privateer setup, but going to all the World Cups. So when I ended up going up the baseline at Speedies and bending a Saracen into absolute bits, like pedals, cranks, bottom bracket, head tube bent off it, absolutely wrote the thing off. And I had bought that from Alpine Bikes as well. And I remember we went back and the guy's looking at me like, what on earth did you do to this? I've never seen this before. Showed him the video and he was just kind of laughing, and he was like, well, I'll try and get you a warranty claim, but I'm not open for them. I'm not open for much here. And I remember stood next to him on the phone. He said, oh, what did the guy do? And he said, oh, he just kind of jumped off like a 3-foot wall outside the shop. It was actually came down from about 25 feet to just like this triangle, put the bike right on top of it and just bent the wheels, everything.
We've got the clip as well. We'll have to put that in.
Oh, shit.
Absolutely destroyed the thing. So Rory had gotten a team for the next again year, or a new bike. I can't really remember how it worked, but his bike from that year, from the previous year's racing, was sat there not doing much. So, my dad had helped him out a few times. We'd helped him. He obviously seen what we're trying to do. So he thought, you know what, just have my bike. So I ended up turning up to this first SD after only racing 3 mini downhills. This full motocross kid came out of nowhere, friends with nobody, and then turned up with this 9.9 Trek session, like the best of the best. So I can imagine everybody's looking at me going, what the fuck is going on here?
And this was during like Gwen era as well. This is 2012, like prime Gwen era.
Yeah.
Like the Trek was the bike to be on.
Trek was the bike to have. It was the most expensive, the coolest looking. Like it was the tits. It was the bike. So here's little old Reece pulling up to his first ever SD, which was my fourth only mountain bike race with this bike. All the pot kit Alpine bikes on it, because Alpine bikes started helping me with it was Matt and Knowlesy, James Knowles, who now lives in the village. Like, it's pretty crazy. Those guys were super, super good with me and Max to begin with. Like, we'd go in there, on an uplift, broke this, broke that, puncture this, puncture that. Like, we were always ragging the bikes. We weren't smooth. We definitely went through things rather than around them or over them. So, yeah, those guys were good. So that kind of started that. That was, again, that must have been... What year was that? 16? Did you just say?
So that was 2012. So you only did 3 races in 2012. You did two minis. Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, that's going into 13.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, that was the SDA.
Yeah. So this is us at the
First
start of
national
2013.
round.
Yeah, was my first ever national race. We decided after the success of the mini downhills, us not knowing what the hell they were, but knowing that the 2 or 3 riders that I raced against were getting like top 3s in juniors at Scottish level and maybe cracking top 10 at British. So I was like, well, if I'm kind of on par, we were trying to make guesstimations of where I'm going to end up and would it be worth it. So in 2013, I decided I was going to race the full Scottish Motocross Championship on a 125, as well as a few British motocross rounds. And then I was going to race the full Scottish Downhill Association Downhill Mountain Bike Series as well that year. And that's when it all really kicked off. The first couple of rounds of downhill went amazingly well. The first or second round of the Motocross Championship was at the Campbell's house up in, come on, what's the name? Oh, come on.
The track?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's going to really...
West Coast, very west.
Very West Coast, below Oban. Come on, it's going to really annoy me that I can't get the name of it. It'll come to me later in the podcast. I'll come back on that. So yeah, over at their house, qualifying maybe, going up this like real fast whoop section, got a little bit cross-rupped and just done the classic like just full on high side. Was lying in the grass at the side just going, what am I doing? Like I don't actually want to be here. I'm not really enjoying it. For whatever reason, because I love nothing more than motocross right now, since taking that time off. But at the time, sick of it. So that was it. After that race, told my dad, right, I'm done. I'm not going to race any more of the Scottishes this year. The downhill mountain biking's going much better. I'm going to focus on that. And then for the rest of the year, pretty much just rode downhill mountain biking. Have you got Roots and Rain Up?
I do, yeah.
Did it only do SDs that year? Did it do some nationals?
You only did oh no, there was a borderline events. So that's a UK national at Bala. So your first British, you came 15th. In the SDAs, you were like 3rd, 5th, 3rd, 2nd at Killin.
Oh, Killin.
Killin was like a grassy, it was so gnarly
track, basically.
Yeah, it was push up as well, actually. Yeah. And then
great race.
Ticking over into 14, you're getting a bit more serious about going racing downhill.
So 14 must have been my second year at base. Because I became British champion. I'm sure I was at base when I became British champion. Yeah, I would have started that end of the summer of 13. Yeah. I would have started college. So I'd had 3 or 4 months of college.
Proper training.
Yeah, that was it. I'd started grafting.
Yeah.
Started college, started riding a lot more, and then 2014 was going to do the full British series, and it was a hot series that year. If anybody speaks to Laurie Greenland, Taylor Vernon, Laurie Greenland and Taylor Vernon had one of the best junior series battles. I mean, every time I've asked Laurie about it, he says it was pretty intense, and Taylor's mentioned it to me a few times as well, saying he fairly enjoyed it. Like looking back on it now, it was Taylor Vernon had signed for the Athertons, he was on GT, and Laurie Greenland was on Trek World Racing. And
big hype with both of those guys.
At the time, I was privateer, but yeah, the hype over those two on UK media was absolutely bonkers.
The Clay Porter quarry segment. And like Taylor was introduced with his jersey that was too flappy.
yeah. And Taylor was a motocross kid as well. As it turns out, me and Taylor raced against each other and 65 cc's at a few British motocross races that I just happened to be at and he happened to be at. So he was like, I caught word that he was this motocross kid that's coming to downhill that's doing really well. So instantly was just like, whoa, competition with him. Laurie was really good, super, super small and younger as well, and almost on our levels. So again, was like me and Taylor were super competitive with him, and that season was just an absolute tear. Like some great tracks, some great races, and ended up winning the series overall, and ended up becoming British champion overall. Which, you know, for a second real year ever of racing downhill was madness. But my dad was fucking stoked, you know. It had been worth it, all that time spent. He was buzzing on it. I was absolutely cheesing, buzzing. You know, just beating the two guys who were gonna be the next big things in World Cup downhill from the UK. So that was really, I'd say that was the starting point. That was me feeling like, yeah, I'm in the right place. Like I really can do this now. It's not going to be easy from here on out. I'd seen how hard it was starting to get at national level. Like I wasn't just going out and winning them all. You know, it was fierce competition. It was really difficult. Tracks were a lot different. And obviously these guys have been racing for quite a few years, all through youth, juvenile, youth, and junior. And I'd only joined in at the end of junior. I'd only really done one.
You did 1 year of junior.
One proper year of junior. So yeah, there was a lot for me to learn. These guys were going to tracks reoccurring for nationals. They had been to Pila for summer holidays with their parents, or Leger. Like they had been and experienced all of this stuff. I was like years and years behind them, although I was competing with them.
It was also Innes Graham.
Fierce competition with Innes. Me and Innes were at the college course together. And that was fierce. Yeah, I'd love to see his opinion on all that. And he's definitely going to listen to this. So it'll be good to hear him on the podcast and see what he has to say about it, or what it was like from his point of view. But yeah, 2 or 3 kids in high school, we were all Drew Carters. There was quite a few of us were really good bike riders. We're all pretty much on par. Fitness wise, I probably was never the fittest. They were always better than me. Like I said, they were always so many years ahead of me with cycling that I was never really going to catch up in that sense.
Unfit though from motocross.
No, I wasn't unfit. Motocross is a challenging sport. You know, it's cardio wise, it's a cracking sport. Like it doesn't make you unfit, but cycling fit. You know. Anyway, me and Innes went at it for a good couple of years in college, and then he was really excelling in British and World Cup downhill mountain biking. You know, I was second year junior, he was second year. He was I always had a target on his back. Like he was the guy that, you know, he was the guy winning, so I might as well aim for him. And luckily I had him to train with and follow all week, every week at college. Like he couldn't really escape me. He was constantly giving me his information. So it was, again, that perfect storm for me. It just potluck. I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to sit and watch Innes, I'm going to learn everything I know. It just happened that way. So yeah, he helped me massive, and I'm sure I helped him. Because it got to a point where me and him were quite clearly above everybody else at college as far as raw speed goes. And it became, every time we done little timing sections, little 15, 20 second sections, it was serious. Like the riders queued up in silence at the top because me and Innes were going at it, you know. We must win. Like for whatever, you know, there was nothing on the line whatsoever other than ego and pride. It was a serious time. That was two intense years of college. It was brilliant. And God, Fraser McCubbin, you know, you throw Fraser into that mix as well. I was living with Fraser McCubbin, who was the youth junior British champion.
Yep.
Youth British champion.
So Fraser is now mechanicking for Trek.
Factory Racing, He was mechanicking for Charlie Harrison last year, and then 2 years ago, and then Bodie last year, and then Bodie again this year. So that's gone full circle again. You know, me and Fraser lived together in Eleuthen all through base in a flat on the high street, which was an absolute barrel lash. The first ever time we had both kind of moved out.
I
from
basically
home,
lived there.
You
as well.
basically lived there
for
as
like
well.
half the week. I'd come over and stay with the boys. It was
Angus would come down if he could. Oh, yeah. It was just everybody there the night before we went riding. So then it was like having a sleepover. You know, you just elongated that time that you could get to hang out with each other before going riding the next day. So we had just so many buzzing guys all aiming for the same star. You know, it was just like this V format just trucking towards winning and winning only. And it was just the best possible environment, I guess you could have put us in at the time.
So that year you did a World Cup.
Yeah.
You did.
I hadn't planned to, but I had to get jerseys, and I remember applying for them.
Midway through the year, you probably got enough points or whatever to go over and give it a go. So you got the jersey, and Maribel, which
Cracking.
again we've got footage of all this stuff. The archive is deep.
Don't waste too much of it in here.
I'm not gonna, no, it's all right.
You guys are all going to hang out for a long time. Yeah, there's a lot.
And then ticking over into 15, you get a ride.
Did I have three? Did I have 3 7th places that year? I remember being like was it the 3 World Cups I done were 3 7ths? I'm sure Mont Saint Anne was 7th. Maribel was 7th, wasn't it?
I've only got Maribel here, 10th.
No other ones.
I'm sure
you did.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. 14th, 7th. You got a 7th, a 14th, and a 10th.
7th, 14th, 10th. So reasonably consistent.
And that was there was a junior category.
Yeah. That was a junior. So yeah, I guess the national series was going well up to a point. So before Fort William juniors could apply for a jersey, you had to get a BC jersey if you didn't have any World Cup points. So then British Cycling, which is BC, had to allow you to go by gifting you one of these jerseys, and there was I think only 7 jerseys. So yeah, we applied, got a jersey, went to Fort William, obviously home race. It was a lot easier to get a jersey for that. And then after that, was Leo Gang on there or not?
No.
So I didn't get a jersey for Leo Gang. Then went to Maribel. Wyndham. Did we go to Wyndham
next?
So the season was
That's
going...
an expensive trip.
Yeah, well, that's it. The season was going really, really well. And it got to, as I said, my parents have always been in. They're all in. Like, we're not doing it by halves. So when I got 7th top 10 in the world, which my dad, didn't know much about mountain biking, but he could recognise that was pretty special for how little we had been racing for. And the people I was competing against and the teams they were on, he knew we were onto something pretty good. So him and my mum decided, you know what, stuff it. Let's hire a motorhome. Let's ship half the family over there and let's just road trip this thing out and make it happen. So we ended up going over to America in a camper van, and God knows how much. It was like 15, 20 grand plus for the trip. But, we were in. We had committed down the road, and I was clearly committed. I was trying my nuts off. I wanted to make it happen, and they saw that. So, yeah, sacrificed however many holidays money to just go into bikes. So went to Wyndham, had a pretty good result there. That was when I put my helmet down on a spider's nest, 14th, right before the start line. I was warming up on this old, didn't have a warm up bike. I didn't have anything. So me and Fraser McCubbin used to just sit, just chat shit and do some, like real basic moves. Like we didn't have a warm up whilst we're sitting watching Loris Verger, Taylor Vernon, Laurie Greenland, all of these guys with their factory teams on their turbos. Like it was nuts, and we were just sat there in the corners as pretty much nobodies. It was cool, and I sat my helmet down right on top of these tiny little orange spiders, and obviously dunted it down enough to disturb the nest, and they couldn't go anywhere because my helmet had surrounded them, and they all just went up into my helmet. As usual for me, I was late for the start. Can't remember why. Probably just completely blissfully unaware of my time and how serious it was. And I remember hearing the number boards getting screamed, Reece, Reece, Reece. Threw my helmet on, bombed straight over. Fraser was behind me. And if you ask Fraser to tell you the same story, you could see me behind, like taking my goggles off, flapping them around. And the 5 second counter's on. I'm still flapping my goggles. I got to like 3 seconds. I put my goggles on and set off because the spiders were crawling around the inside of the goggles. There was spiders in everywhere, honestly. It was all over the place, going down my neck, over my jersey. So it was as quick as I could get to the finish line to take my helmet and goggles back off because I was basically being eaten alive on my face by spiders. It was awful. Such an amateur mistake. But it was funny. It made a cracking story. But really struggled for that track. That wasn't really me.
Dusty, very, very dusty.
It was very dusty, very short and very fast. It was intense.
And then you went to Maribel and you got a 10th. Which I remember you were pretty happy with.
Cracking race. I think Loris won that and won the overall that year, I think. I remember that's when Loris's name first really came into my life, really, was hearing Loris Verger and was like, holy shit, he's obviously the guy.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Bryceland would have won the overall.
This was juniors, though.
I know, but for the elites.
For that year.
That was the year that Bryceland won the overall.
Did Sam Hill was at that race on an Outproof?
Yeah, he was.
Did he win that?
No, like that. Let's go check it.
Oh, thank you. I'm pretty sure there was a.
This is why we need a producer here.
I know. I'm pretty sure we need like a. There was a. Sorry, I'm pretty sure there was like.
He did.
Yeah,
Sam Hill won.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a standout winner.
Matt Simmons, Josh Bryceland, Loic Bruni, G. Arthur, Aaron Gwynn, Danny
It was
Hart.
an insane track, and I remember seeing Sam Hill. That was, everybody, the Sam Hill. It was nuts, like that whole Sam Hill energy at the time. And I don't know if he'd just come back for that race, if he'd been racing that season or if he'd been injured. I can't remember, but I remember him being at that race, and it was the first ever time getting to see him ride and race, and it was pretty special. And then, of course, he won the thing, so I'm just like, oh, all hail Sam Hill. It was mad, absolutely mad. So yeah, that was 2014. That was what I class as my first year racing, because the SDA one was but it was technically my second official year of riding bikes. Madness. We jammed a lot in.
Amazing.
Jammed
and
a lot
then
in.
2015, you managed to land yourself a wee ride.
Are we riding?
Well,
Are we riding?
pretty significant ride for the time.
It definitely was. So through 2014, Rory Cunningham was riding for Junior Tools Trek, and they had Trek, SRAM. So it was a good, strong team as far as components went. The structure of the team, it had absolutely everything. So Rory was kind of constantly trying to nag them, and it was mostly Teeny at the time, but also Gregor was there. And those guys they'd already the budget things. We understood how it worked, but Rory was constantly trying to nag them, see, please help him, give him a bit more. So they were really good with me. If I ripped a mech off, which I'd done a lot of, I was pretty rough when it was those first couple of years, chain rings, stuff like that, bit of suspension servicing, those guys would help me. So then at the end of 2014, they actually offered me a full ride for 2015. That was my first ever year in Elite, which unless you win all of juniors is pretty much unheard of. Like, it's really, really hard to do that. But through Rory, I guess, and my parents and hanging out with the team a lot, and they kind of really liked us, and I really liked Teeny. I still love Teeny. Gregor, those guys helped me massively. It's a great, great little team that they have going. And yeah, they offered me a full ride in Elite for 2015. So me and Rory had become teammates, 3 years after him meeting me and just being like, what was going on? It was, like I said, this avalanche effect. Things happened so fast. None of us realized what we were in. It was just, whoa, just stars in front of us. It was crazy.
And having Rory throughout that, because that was when you started to really spend time with Roy and really do laps with Roy at a World Cup level in Elite as well. So you're in the same practice. Now you're getting towed in with Roy. How much were you learning from that?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, obviously we pretty much ended up riding a full winter again. He would coach a lot at the college course that we were on, and then he kind of got like the coach, trying to coach as much as he was and train as a professional, do it all. It gets pretty difficult, at least to do both well. You start becoming a bit of a universal doormat and you can't do anything right. So that's really where he was at. So he kind of started taking a bit of a sidestep off, but on those days, he'd be phoning me, right, what are you doing tomorrow? We're going to the skate park, or we're going to the pump track, we're going to do sprints, we're going out on a ride. So he started tagging me along. And he's admitted it to me, it was a blessing for him as well to meet a kid with so much energy and passion, where everything was new and everything was exciting again, who's also, nipping at his heels, pushing him along. He's noticing this little kid that's been riding for 3 weeks, 3 years, the equivalent that's starting to do the same stuff as him, and he's been riding for 15 years, so kind of pushed him on a little bit. And then I was trying to chase him as he was gapping me away again. So we just both went on this absolute tear through 2015, had a brilliant season, like really, really enjoyed it. Probably hung out with each other too much. We have personalities that are both very strong, and Rory's he was very strong, and I was still a child, a wee bit of a dick, enjoyed winding him up, or thought it was funny to wind him up a lot of time. And yeah, we had a wild year. We had in my opinion, a great year. It had everything. It had anger in it. It had happiness. It had tears. It had the lot. It was absolutely amazing to have somebody to travel the world with, and that's really what I was doing. I didn't have any parents at that point. It was me and Rory in this team of Slovenians. They had pretty good English, but we definitely didn't have any Slovenian. So it felt like me and Rory against the world for like a whole year. It was brilliant. It was so good.
And that continued on into 16. We're moving fast now.
Yeah, 16. Well, 16, I think only done like 2 World Cups, maybe in a national. 16 was a terrible year. I got like concussion before. I was supposed to go to hardline, an AC separation. I think I rolled my ankle in the skate park. Had to get surgery.
Doing a 360.
Doing a 360, and then like 2 weeks later, rolled my ankle in the skate park and had to get surgery. Like it was, or like 2 weeks coming back from it. I can't really remember exactly what the exact tale of. If I went through and looked at my camera roll, I could tell you, but it was like a real unlucky string of injuries that was probably due to me, not doing any physio because I didn't really have anybody that knew what they were doing around me. You just winged it as well as trying to come back too fast, like just being like, well, I can walk, so I can ride. Just
and also you're
cracking on.
You're also adjusting at the highest level, and you're trying to compete at that level.
Yeah.
So that 16 is what I can remember as the start of struggles.
Absolutely, yeah. That's where the rainbows, butterflies, and stars kind of came to an end in 2015. Up until that point, I hadn't really thought about training or having to train or it being a job. I wasn't being paid. I was being, mum and dad were kind of paying things. You're just young. Life's just easy. It's just cushy. You're just rolling along. So that's really where I was at. And then 2016, parents started to kind of turn down the screws and be like, right, we've gotten you to this point, but second, third year elite, you told us you would be making money by this point. Like, you're going to have to kind of help or think about doing something else. So that was when it was like, okay, now it's a job. Now I have to do well in order to make money, in order to make a living out of this. And that's, reality set in a little bit. And it definitely became harder from there. That changes things pretty quick.
So you kind of sit 16 out, 17, you're presumably healthy-ish coming back into it. No, 17 was Bergamot.
Yeah.
So
16.
Explain that right.
So 15 was brilliant. I can't remember where I ended up, but I remember being top 25 quite a few times. My number board got pretty low. I had definitely some top, I think maybe a top 20 or two. We'll get clarification on that. I'll continue chatting. It was a great year as far as I was concerned. I went on a real pretty steady build.
So you're talking about 16?
No, 15 still, sorry. My first year elite.
Yeah, you're correct. There was a 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Seen a 35th.
Mm-hmm.
71st, 61st.
Ooh.
There or thereabouts.
Yeah, I had enough for me to be like, okay, there's something there. Like I said, there was a 25th. There was a few others, which, when you had Greg Menars and Sam Hills and Loic Bruni's, and you can stack out the top 15 or top 20 pretty quick. Brooke McDonald, Sam Blenkinsop, like it was stacked at the time. So I was right on the top of that bubble of like lower end factory riders. I was kind of in there. So I was pretty stoked on that. So going through into 16, had a terrible year, basically didn't race at all. So really didn't deserve any money or any team after that. It was pretty bad. Unior were kind enough to say your offer from last year is still there, which I believe was no money, but I got all my bikes, travel, accommodation. It was good. I could work through the winter and summer holidays and make some money. It was all right. They offered me that. And I was kind of sat there going, I really need some money. Like, was really trying to pry some money out of them. Although in hindsight, knowing fine well, I didn't really deserve it on a low end team like that. I was barking up the wrong tree. And then Eddie Masters came into my life, dropped me a message on like a December maybe of 2016. What are you doing next year? No, I've not signed anything yet. I'm pretty open. He said, right, well, I've got a Bergamot deal. Jack Moyer, I think, had just left the team. He had been on Bergamot. So I was like, well, those guys have got some good results, and went on his Instagram and everybody else's Instagram and Matt Walker's and all those guys, and they looked like they were having a lot of fun. And the selling point was that I could get to go to Queenstown in New Zealand for a month at the start of the year. So they offered me €5,000, and he himself was disgusted with it. It's not so much his money, but he was like, listen, this is all I've got for you. Like, I know it's pretty bad. It's barely going to cover your flights to get here, never mind the rest of the season. But are you in? And I kind of made it's a bit of a childish decision at the time, and went, you know what? I am in. I'm going to do it. Phoned Unior and said, nope, I'm not signing this. I'm not taking it. I've got something else. Totally, Tini, Gregor, regret it. I should have maybe stayed as far as performance goes. But Eddie, as far as fun goes, could not have made a better choice. Like, it was a year to gain life experience that I would never have gained anywhere else had it not been for trying to follow Eddie Masters around the world. Like, it was wild. It was a really, really good time. Met some amazing people. Went to one of the coolest countries in the world. Queenstown, New Zealand's amazing, but Queenstown, New Zealand's some place, just partied there pretty much for a month. Rode bikes, crashed my brains out quite a few times, stitches, parties, the lot, sleeping in the back of cars, sleeping in bathtubs, the mansion party, I was there for that. Like, it was absolute madness. It really was. It was a brilliant year, but I can't I think I maybe got an 11th at Fort William was my best result. And then it would be, I'm pretty sure it was pretty hot and cold there on out.
Absolutely, yeah. You got an 11th, but then you were 50th in Leogang, 26th in Val Nord, 42nd in Lenzerheide. You got a second at an IXS at the start of the year.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Fabian Burrell and Greg Williamson was there. Yeah, there was, again, glimmers. There was glimmers of hope where I thought, yep, okay, it's definitely there. I can do this. I can do it. But then at the end of that year, I didn't really, and I mean, I hadn't approached, I didn't even know you had to go around the pits and ask people to ride for them. I was just assumed they'd see your talent and come and find you, but it's not really the way it works. You have to get yourself out there, but I hadn't done that. So towards the end of 17, hot and cold, party boy team, I'm going about with sliders on, looking pretty unemployed. Like it was, it was fun, it was relaxed.
Oh,
I definitely wasn't sweating, it was chill, but it wasn't employable, that was for sure. So yeah, needless to say, nobody came near me. And then the team folded in was it December or January? And it came total out of the blue. Eddie called me and he said, listen, Reece, there's nothing happening next year. I've not got any team. He said, I'm really sorry. I've got nothing. I can't even kind of pass you on to Bergamont. It's not like I'm leaving and there's going to be something there. There's just nothing. So that was it. 2017, the winter of 2016 coming into the year 2017 was just sat in my thumbs basically, like, this is it. It's come to an end. You know, I saw glimmers. I could have maybe done it. Had all sorts of thoughts, but what it came down to was, I guess I retire now. I can't make money. My dad mainly was really starting to put the screws down, even though mum was kind of on the fence, trying to be like, we'll try and help as much as we can. But, you got two other sisters that, you're getting a lot, what are you doing for them sort of thing. So yeah, I remember driving up to, me and my dad were going to ride motocross one day, a bit of training or something on Saturday. And I remember just bursting into tears in the van with him and saying, that's it, I'm done. It's not going to work. I've not got a team. I'm not going to ask you guys to pay for it again. So yeah, I'll just walk away from it and kind of, I guess, work with you, Dad. He was, he didn't really know what to say. I think I remember him trying to be like, no, I'll be okay. We'll just not have that conversation. Like almost just trying to not have the conversation, tell me to stop crying and, it'll be all right sort of thing. So, ended up building pump tracks with Bikescape. Paul, just trying to make a bit of money, kind of done anything that I could. So Paul was working in a bike shop and also trying to get his own business off the ground, which is Bikescape. So he was trying to build pump tracks. So he said to me, because he knew I was at a bit of a loose end, come and help me build pump tracks kind of on the cheap if you're not up to much. I'll give you a bit of experience on machinery. You'll maybe get to do some things that you wouldn't elsewhere. So I thought, yeah, you know what, stuff it. I'll go and give that a shot. So helped build a Cardrona pump track in the middle of winter with about 6 inches of permafrost and a whole lot of laughs and a whole lot of anger and a whole lot of tears. Again, another real life situation, but I learned a lot about how to build a pump track and working machinery and just being outside. And it was just I enjoyed it. It was good. So I'm sat on a machine one day and I get a message from Pish from Commensal 100, as most of you guys would know the team. He messaged me and said, so what are you doing next year, Reece? And I was like, well, actually, I have nothing planned next year. Pish, what are you saying? And he said, I've actually got, I'd like to have you on the team. But he said, I've not really got anything for you. I definitely can't pay you. Struggling to get a mechanic, but I kind of really want you on the team. I don't know. It'd be funny to hear Pish's story, but Pitch, whatever you want to say it. He liked what he saw. I guess he always spoke about my style, liked my style, and I guess he's seen something that nobody else did because nobody else reached out to me that year. And Pish was the only one, so I didn't even have to question it. He said, if you can find a mechanic, you're in. I said to him on the phone, done, I'm in. Hung up the phone, was like, shit, I better find a mechanic. And as I look out the window of my skid steer, Paul's hammering pins into frozen ground, swearing his ass off. I was like, he works in a bike shop. As long as he can build a wheel, he's in. So I remember turning the machine off, opening the window. I was like, Paul, what are you doing? What are you up to this year? He's trying to build some pump tracks, man. I'm like, right, you want to travel the world with me and race some bikes? I said, I've worked for you cheap. If you can work for me cheap, well, let's go and make it happen. So I'm pretty sure Pish said he can pay Paul like $3,500 for a whole year of, mechanic on the World Cup circuit. Paul had never mechanicked on a World Cup bike before, ever. He had been in a shop, parts fitting here and there, a bit gear cable here and there, but it's nothing like a World Cup mechanic. So I lied to Pish and said, I've got a World Cup mechanic. We'll see you at round one. And that was that. That turned out to be probably, to this date, the funnest, most relaxed year of World Cup racing I've ever had. Me and Thomas Stack. Bruce Klein also was on that year. I don't know if he got injured a wee bit. I don't know if Bruce made every round, but me and Thomas Stack ended up getting on like ham and tomato, absolute house on fire. Like you could not separate us. And for whatever reason, Thomas's English really wasn't great either, but it was just
a vibe. You get that.
You know what? Yeah, you hung out with him a fair bit. He's just a guy, man. He's just brilliant. He was just everything about him I loved. He was passion. He wasn't neat. He wasn't really tidy. He didn't care about a whole lot. He just ride his bikes. Chocolate milk and croissants.
He was pretty young as well at that point.
He was, yeah. We were both fairly young. Amaury Perrion, I think, had just left the team. After that was Amaury's like kind of breakout year, 17, 18. 17, sorry, as like that privateer, Commencal 100. He had a few really good results, as a lot of people will be aware. So he had just left the team. So I knew the team had good pedigree. Thomas was on a bit of a roll, and me and Thomas just merged like we had been with each other all our lives and just went on an absolute tear. We're up till 1, 2 in the morning making pancakes and playing Fortnite. Like the night before World Cup finals at Val di Sole, and then I stuck it in 7th, he stuck it on the box. Like it was just one of those years, it was just nothing was difficult. Nobody was changing bike setup. It was just chill, just really, really relaxed, and everything was happening easy. So 2018 was amazing.
That was a big year. I remember I had first met Glenn Thompson, who's now my business partner in Sleeper Co. And we were filming a segment. I was riding, he was filming, and I remember saying to him, like, I just want to make it to the World Cups, because I was at uni. I was seeing what you were doing. I could see the trajectory, and I just wanted to be there to film my mate do this thing.
Yeah,
and he'll remember that conversation as well. And sure enough, couldn't get out to the World Cups, was begging Piche to pay me, didn't have the money to get a filmer at all, and I had no portfolio whatsoever really in terms of videography. And then you came to Fort William, so I was like, yes, I'll go document this. And Fort William was the round where you got on the box. Like that was the breakout result.
Yeah.
And then we made that video dreams come true for anyone that's seen that. Put it up on screen.
Yeah, that was a brilliant weekend. Ended up getting fourth, kind of. Yeah, wild weekend. Can't really remember any of it. It was just all a big blur. I felt like an underdog that year, 2017, 16. There'd been shit years. Hadn't really had any results. I'd kind of this was a last ditch attempt. I'd retired, basically, decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. Then this team had come along, and it was all a bit of just a kind of final whirlwind. Not really knowing what I was playing at, but willing to give it a shot, and the stars aligned.
It's definitely worth emphasizing that you were very much on the verge of quitting. Like I remember, sitting in the van with you, and you were like, "Yeah, nah, probably won't bother. Probably just go welding with my dad and ride motocross."
Yeah,
and I remember feeling just so gutted that it was like it was over for you.
Yeah.
So that film, that's why it's like. It channels so much of that emotion.
Everybody was crying. Every single person in the place was crying their eyes out. Like it was a massively emotional result. Like I guess World Champs was emotional. I cried like a Wally on that as well, which I didn't really would like to not have done. But some are just emotional and some aren't. Like Snowshoe. When I won Snowshoe, wasn't really emotional at all. It was like a happiness. It was a happy win. And yeah, Fort William was just complete and utter emotions, just tears and tears and tears, because it was all over. Not only 4 months previous to that race, it was all over. The dream was done. It was dead in the water. I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't good enough. So then that was when Piche phoned me, sat in the digger like, if I just made a whole load of just it just felt right to say yes, and just kept saying yes. And then before I knew it, I'm stood in a box in front of Scotland, is what it felt like. It was madness.
And it was such a patriotic moment, because it was the first time anyone had sat on the podium in elite in male from Scotland. Since Stu Thompson, which is a long time ago.
Way back, yeah.
So that was huge.
Oh, it was massive, yeah. And then that whole year ended up being massive. That was, I think I strung together 3 or 4 top 10s that year. like I said, it was just happening easy. It was coming really, really easy. Commensal at the end of that year offered me a right to stay. Wasn't that I didn't want to. I loved the team, obviously. Loved being with Thomas. I loved being with everybody else. But I ended up getting a phone call at Val de Sol about 2 hours after the final. I believe I was 7th, so I had a couple of beers, was drinking with Thomas. Things were going well, and the phone rang, and it was an unknown number, an area code or a country code at the start that I'd never seen before. I was like, what is this? But answer it, because that's just what I'm like. I'd answer any calls from anybody on my phone. And it was somebody from Trek, and they told me that they were going to start a brand new in-house factory team. It was going to be Trek Factory Racing, and they were going to be on SRAM products, 100% clothing, and they'd like me to ride for them. They'd like me to be, at the time I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the second place rider. They were talking to Lucas Shaw. Aaron Gwynn was rumoured. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of top riders they were talking to. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the second place guy on the team, maybe even third, but it's Trek Factory Racing. Like, I can't believe they're on the phone. Asked me what sum of money I wanted. I told them the sum there and then, and it was Ryan Bodge on the phone. He just pretty much went, "Yep." Anything else? And I was like, "No, I think that's all." And he was like, "Yeah, sweet, right. Okay, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch in a few days. We'll let you know." And that was that. So he had told me a few names like Luca and stuff like that. So I remember chirping to Luca and being like, what's happening with you? Are you thinking about doing it? Are you going to be on there? Are you not going to be on there? And anyway, as it turned out, it was me, Cade Edwards, Charlie Harrison, and Ethan Chandro, which felt like I'd walked into the Thomas Stack situation again. 2019, we all got together. We were over in Wisconsin. The Trek flew us all out there to do like a team camp in California, and then go up to Wisconsin to see the HQ, and we just laughed and laughed and laughed the entire time. Like, not just the riders, the staff. It was a whole, well, obviously American and English, but all English spoken, which I'd never been on before. That makes a huge difference when you can communicate with all of the characters that you're actually traveling the world with. And yeah, like I said, it was just a barrel of laughs from day one. And 19 wasn't a great year for me, actually. I couldn't tell you what happened exactly. Maybe the pressure of finally being paid and finally feeling like I'd got it. I'd finally cracked it. I didn't have that hunger deep in me to actually go and achieve, because I'd signed like a 2-year deal. I was cushy now. I didn't need to go and do anything. I don't know if that was a factor, but
2019, you started off at Maribor with a 12th. Then
it's pretty good.
You got Fort William. You crashed into the tree.
Yeah.
We made a vlog of that whole weekend as well.
Missed a vital bit of information. 2018, I went to Red Bull Hardline and absolutely blew my shoulder to blitz. That was pretty much what started it.
So you were rehabbing
all the money I'd pretty much saved from that year on surgery on my shoulder, and then had only got, when was Fort William, the date of that year, it would only been like 3 or 4 months surgery wise from being able to ride again to being back to racing. That was it. Yeah. So I started on the back foot through 2019 pretty bad it was like a grade 5 AC separation. So that's pretty much the worst you can do on shoulder separation. So got it bolted all back together, and it was a slow. I guess, I started well, and then as the fatigue set in, as the season goes on, a few more bumps and crashes and scrapes and hears. It's hard to stay confident with your body and plow it into the ground every weekend when there's a weakness there. So I think I ended up riding a bit timid, and
still got a 16th in Leo Gang.
Yeah, there's always tracks I seem to like, go well at.
And Val de Sol 14th.
Wow.
Towards the end of the year.
Yeah. There you go then, just hot and cold.
Wait, Lenzerheide, 9th.
It's actually pretty good. Technically the best season to date, really. Consistency. Up until that point, it was the best season to date. But it just didn't feel good for me as far as racing goes. I felt like I was quite carrying through that injury, and just didn't feel like I was anywhere near where I could be. If you think you can win and you only get a 9th, then a 9th shit. But if you think you can barely scrape a top 10 and you get a 9th's great. So the results never won. The numbers never really the thing you're actually looking at. It's where your expectation was versus where your result came in. So back then that would have bothered me. Things, definitely expectations and stuff now are completely different. So I'd like to approach it differently. But yeah, 2019. So good season result wise, but
solid. And you're getting to hang out with Cade and stuff.
yeah.
That's a good time. I guess it's a good time to say as well that we've Sleeper have signed a contract with Trek, which people can get very excited about, because I mean I was working for years to get that.
Yeah.
In reality, like I'd wanted to come and just be able to document what you were doing for so long, and for so long it just felt like everything was against me just being able to get there and film you, which was like the maddest thing, because it was almost like this separation was happening where you were just away off doing your thing and I was doing the other thing. But then it was great because then it led to the paint bike, all the paint bike stuff and the paint bike racing stuff, and having to make films for a bunch of other people, and it was great. And just coming into the industry, and then all of a sudden we're on the ground at the World Cups together, and I'm bumping into you and stuff, and it felt really good to just finally be there, because that was always the thing. And then now to be signed with Trek, it's going to be a good year. It's going to be thoroughly documented.
No, I can't wait to have Sleeper Coat on the cams for us. Like it has been a long time trying to get you to be in a position where you're at least paid to film me instead of just having to do it all off our own backs, you know. And obviously the Flying Scotsman was done a lot just because we wanted to do it, you know. There was nobody else there. Like you've only ever really done all you've done because you wanted to do it, and I've kind of been the same. Like that's all I've wanted to do was race bikes for my whole life, you know. As I said, as a child, I just knew I wanted to do it, and that's what I'm going to go and do. So it's funny how things have happened. I think that's something for my whole life really up until this point, is looking back at bad things, you know, and like the team Bergamot folding and almost retiring and all of these things really in hindsight didn't prevent me from getting me to where I wanted to be. It's just different lessons that you almost have to be taught in order to get to where you want to be, you know. And it has been that for you. It's like you've had to have so much patience for so many years, you know, dealing with frustrating situations and not being where you want to be, whilst watching me, you know, from the outside look like I'm exactly where I want to be, you know. So it is totally, it's tough to do that.
When you're seeing your mates like travel, it's always the thing of travel, because you just have to take a photo of the view, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so jealous, you know. But no, it was amazing, because the Flying Scotsman it felt to me like it was an opportunity for us to come back together and do something, and I didn't have to listen to anyone because we had no initial funding from it, and then Trek came in and helped us out, which was brilliant, and 100% as well. Shout out to those guys. And we made it happen, and it really felt like it was like a full circle situation. So we'll go again. There will be another Flying Scotsman, but it might not be called the Flying Scotsman. We don't know yet. It's
I don't feel like you can possibly call it anything else now. It's going to be crazy. Crazy to try and rename it to something else. We'll see though. Any ideas, throw them in the comments. We don't really know.
How's the
getting in the hang of this now, eh?
Since the film, how is the response to you felt like?
I mean, it's been noticeable. You'll have said this. You'll have noticed the same. I think everybody noticed it when we turned up to Fort William this year. You know, the movie came out last year, the end of 21.
Before the season,
pre-season 21.
We really tried to get it out pre-season.
So it went mental almost instantly. But by the time we rolled round to World Cup round 1, it was on like 500,000 views. And a lot of comments. For some reason, it hit a market that wasn't the core mountain bike market. It went so much further afield, and most of the messages that I received were actually really, really long paragraph messages from people saying that they'd just gotten into the sport. Like, it was so many people, a lot of mums, a lot of dads. You know, my kids watched this film, and I've walked in on it, and it's brilliant. You know, you're this, that, the other. Like, it's amazing. So I kind of knew the effect straight away. And then rolling into Fort William World Cup, could never in a million years have imagined it being quite that much. You know, it was like everybody that I walked past was like that. You know, when they, oh my God, it's Reece Wilson. Oh, that's Reece Wilson. Just whispering all of the time, you know, and these faces going, turning around and looking at you. Like, it was bizarre. It was really, really bizarre. And I'll be honest, I didn't like it. You know, I didn't handle it very well. I didn't know how to handle it. How do you prepare somebody for that? You know, it's, most people think, you know, it's be careful what you wish for, I guess. You know, as a kid, me and you, like, I want to be famous. Pretty much every kid ever wants to be famous. And I wouldn't say I'm famous, but, you know, in the mountain bike world, I'm well known. So to turn up and have all of those faces turning and know your names, and bloody hell, they know what you had for dinner, 2 nights ago better than you did. It's like some of the information that they see just by following you on Instagram and following your friends on Instagram and stuff. People really, really feel like they know you. So yeah, you got a lot of interaction, a lot of face on face action from that, and that's really when it settled in for me. It was like, wow, the power of a good film like that, and the time that you had spent on that, and the money that had been spent on it is so worth it. When you see how far afield that can stretch and the effect it has, how many people came to that race just because of that video? Hundreds of people,
It's also just the story itself was great. Like,
oh yeah, of course.
There's
yeah.
always the editing and the video, but like the story was like really touching, and you were really honest, which I think is a rarity in extreme sports, because everyone's trying to give off this impression that they're invincible.
Yeah.
But because we know each other so well, it was like straight to the point.
Yeah.
Raw honesty and the full story with nothing left out in terms of emotion. Because you're always working against that when you've never met someone and you go to interview them and they're not giving you the full picture.
Doors are closed.
The doors are closed.
Yeah.
So to have that sort of full honesty, people could really relate to what you were saying and get behind what you were about. So it was just that emotional connection that made everybody go, Reece Wilson.
Yeah.
That's...
No, it was. It was pretty wild. It was funny seeing how many people from the industry, would reply, "Oh, that's really cool." And you take note of the riders that don't, and the other ones out there that, as I was saying at the start of this podcast, that are like, mental warriors. They have that mental toughness and focus, and they don't want to give off. You don't even want to give credit to your peers or the people you're competing against, because then that might give them a little bit of an edge. So it was fun. There was loads of ways that affected my life in different, people that I used to look up to that never said a word about it. And you're kind of like, right, okay, I see we're competing now. It's not like that. It kind of changed. Some of my idols went from being idols to competitors, and it changed the landscape for me quite a lot. And yeah, I think I'd like to think it gave people a good insight into my life and how a lot of racers think. I mean, it's not just me. A lot of that stuff was pretty general for a lot of racers, and yeah, crazy.
We've covered a lot of sort of similar topics in this podcast, even.
Yeah. What you were saying there about people not letting the door in, like not opening the doors and letting you in. It's the same with teammates. Like I said with Thomas the Stack, I couldn't tell you what I'd done differently with him and why his doors opened and my doors opened, but we were both fully honest and open with each other almost instantly. What is that connection to people? Why is it that some people you do just meet and just want to go, oh, honesty straight away, and other people you go, I'm not sure about you. It's just a way of life. Again, it's just one of those things that some people just are hard to tap into.
So the kind of like, you're saying fame again. It's just within the mountain biking space here.
Yeah.
For Fort William specifically, that's the kind of one.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to prepare for that mentally this year?
I'll be honest, I've only just really started thinking about this year. Last year it was more like thinking about it in a sense of I'm prepared for it, I'm ready for it. Like missing up pretty much a whole season of bike riding kind of sucks no matter who you are. Like when it's your job, that's the worst really possible thing that can happen. So I'm full of energy, full of beans and ready for it. So that was me just pretty much spent all of the end of last year going, yep, I'm up for it. And now that I'm actually here and I'm into the new year and you're like, right, okay, it's January, it's this year now, it's not next year. It's made it feel like it's a bit closer to home. So I've only just really started thinking about that. But what would I do differently? Definitely, I think last year, obviously with the whole mindset situation that was going on, like it was, I'd like to think I would have handled it good had I been in a clear mind frame, but because I was just so confused and worried and nervous, and it was just all my other emotions overrode, sense.
So this is for people's information. This is after a succession of crashes leading to concussion symptoms starting to sort of settle in.
Yeah.
And it being pretty bad at Fort William as well. So that's definitely not helping with your social confidence in general.
Yeah. No, that was... I mean, I got to the point where I was coming out the van there was a queue. There was the massive queue of people to get into Fort William, and I was coming out the van. I was like not wearing Trek Factory racing clothes, and like putting my hood up and to basically trying to hide, so people wouldn't talk to me. Got into the pits and hide around the corner. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm not like that. I'm not a shy person, And even if I am at times, I do a really good job of hiding it and disguising it in confidence, and like happiness. So what you see isn't always what you get. But that was a very, very bad example for me. That was not me. I look back at that and I get really, really frustrated. But it wasn't my fault, that was just my brain going through a healing stage, and that amount of stimulation at a time like that was the worst possible thing I could have done, and it really showed how the whole weekend went for me. It was honestly might as well have not bothered. And the fact, what was it, 17th or something I managed to salvage?
Yeah.
Or like top 3 in the last 2 splits on the most physical track of the year whilst being completely cooked. It makes no sense at all, but I guess probably shows you how incredible the human body is, what you're capable of doing when you just get on your own and focus, and that race mindset. I managed to get myself into it enough to do a 17th, which was actually a massive causer of problems, because then I thought, well, maybe I'm fine, I've just managed to do a 17th. I'd normally be quite happy with that. But it was the fans, the dealing with people just seemed so stressful and so full on. And, having fans coming up to me and saying stuff like, just don't crash. Like, just before you're about to go and ride your bike, when all you've got in your mind is not crashing and you've been scared of crashing, it was rough. Yeah, it was a rough week.
Fans don't, everyone means well. They're literally just like wanting to interact with you.
We need a fans, what do you call it? Education. A fans educational episode. It's just educating the fans on how to fan, because it can be done well, it can be done bad.
Don't be coming up to your favorite rider and saying don't crash or some shit like that. Like, it's the last thing that they need to hear.
Yeah, so you put yourself on the scariest position in your life, the one thing that you're scared of, and then somebody comes in and makes a joke about the thing you're scared of. It's not funny. It's like extremely dry humor where a very small percentage might get it. But it seems to be a very, very common thing, I guess, just within mountain biking. I guess because people, I don't know, I'm completely guessing here, but maybe because people crash often at beginner level mountain biking and they're okay. They get up and you're fine because you're going very slowly. They find it okay. You know what I mean? It makes them, we joke about crashing, so we can joke about crashing with you, but like when you're joking about crashing at 70 kilometers an hour, it's not quite as funny, You
kind of get numb to it as well. Like, even me sat at the side of the track, you watch people crash and you're like, they'll be all right. On to the next shot. I'm just stood there, and it's like you see so much that you kind of forget that, like, they're landing on rocks, they're hitting trees, It is weird. Like, so
any one of them could be the last one, It's like you don't always, and it's quite often the stupid little ones that don't even look that bad that can do the damage. But anyway, the point is, don't say things like, "Oh, don't crash," or "All you have to do is not crash."
And also, don't be that guy
it's not helpful
to budge your way to the front of the queue to try and get in the gondola with them.
Oh, that's rough too. Yeah,
and then you sit in that one period of time where you get to at least be with your own thoughts or with a mechanic or something like that. You get a bit of downtime, a bit of silence, think about what you're going to do the run ahead. Don't be shoving your way into the gondola with your favorite rider just because you want to ride to the top.
And then leaving the gondola and saying, oh, don't crash, and then running away. Come on. It sounds, see, we're making a joke about it now. It doesn't even sound that bad, but when you're in it, when you've just went through a really stressful race week and this is, it's crunch time, you're going up for your race run, like simple things like that for a fan it's quite important, just a nice little smile and a fist pump and a good luck or looking stylish, just a wee compliment, something like that, something that gives you a little buzz, but you can keep on going. But another one I get is the curse from the Flying Scotsman's the crash, the crash. You'll have been with me. How many times have you been with me and we bump into people? And the only thing they bring up about me and my career is a crash. That's another one where you're like, fuck. I'm in the middle of practice, you pull over to look at a line and some guy nudges you and goes, here, that crash you had the other man was crazy. I've watched it on YouTube 1,000 times. You're like, I know, mate, I'm trying to keep thoughts like that out of my head, tell me about the time I railed that burn, please. But it's Little note for the fans.
That's what sticks in your head, doesn't it? I mean, it was the thumbnail.
Of course,
It
it was a flying Scotsman.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do about it?
But
I'd like to think people are moving on now. There's been some more exciting things happen since then.
Well, that's it. We're moving on. It's a new year. It's 2023, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
But yeah, the Fort William, it's going to be difficult either way for you to deal with that. But you're just going to have to find a way to enjoy it regardless, because it's like you're only going to get to do this particular race. I mean, any race you only get to do once, but it's like you're just going to have to try and absorb that, because
I think
if you suffer through it and you're having a shit weekend and you're just getting pissed off by people talking to you, it's like embracing it.
I mean, you do in a situation like that. Yeah, I have no option, because you can't possibly ignore that in that environment. Fort William. Anybody's been to Fort William, you're on top of each other for 3 days. Like, you're actually climbing over each other to get to the bar or to get to the podium or to get to the gondola. Like, you can't possibly escape. Last year, honestly, could have done with a security guard to push people out of the way to get me to the gondola, because it took so long to get there. Because as soon as one person or there's primary school full of kids that go there, as soon as one at the front of the group noticed, they all turn around and they all want a signature all at once, and I'm kind of too nice and like just trying to sign every single one. You're there forever. And it was kind of had that effect where kids don't even know who you are, and they'll just go, oh, he's signing something, he must be important. And you just ended up with this. It took me like, a stone. I could throw a stone from the pits to the gondola, and it took me 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes to get there some runs. Like, it was bonkers. And that was even in the peeing rain. It was in the sunshine when everybody's half drunk and t-shirts on. It's even worse. But it's, going to have to embrace it this time, definitely.
For sure. And like, it is all love, because they're fans, right? So
absolutely,
it's like, it's amazing to have. It's such like a almost like a first world problem. Like, oh, you're getting too much adoration.
Yeah, exactly.
From people, but
you can't complain about that.
Yeah, but when you're in it and you're having in that negative mindset, or got loads of concussion symptoms, you could see why you were.
Oh, it was absolutely it was just bad timing, really. It was terrible timing for a race. And I mean, I got my head down and stuck in, because I thought it was just me going through a tough time. But yeah, I think next year, touch wood, going to that one feeling 100% fit, it should be a totally different story. I'd love to embrace the fans and be a lot more, like you said, just feed off their energy, because they'd love nothing more than to see you win as well, and like you've just said, there's not many people in the position that I'm in rolling up to Fort William, so it's something you kind of just have to go, this is incredibly cool, and this is pretty rare, and enjoy it, because you don't really have many other options. So cross that bridge when we come, I think.
It's going to be sick. It's later on in the year. Like, it's always been in June.
Yeah.
It's always been over both of our birthdays have been around about the time of...
I'm going to laugh about this. I don't think I've been home for a birthday since I was 17 years old.
Yeah, since you started all this.
Yeah, pretty much.
You've always been on a flight to Leo Gang.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time.
It kind of sucks. We gave up on birthday parties a long time ago from primary school, really. Like I said, early motocross, I didn't really have childhood stuff like parties and stuff like that. Just was never into them, so it's all right. I don't really care for birthdays either.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a pretty good... Unless you've got anything else to...
I don't really got a whole lot else to say. That's pretty much brought us up to speed, I think.
Yeah. The first podcast is out of the way. I'm pretty excited about this. We've currently not got any sponsors or anything like that. So if
currently got nobody to thank.
just support it. Just support it. If you enjoyed this, if you want to see more of them, we can have a bunch of conversations with a bunch of key characters within the sport is the idea. So yeah,
sign them up. Sign all your friends up.
And I hope you can become a bit of a regular on it as well. So
yeah, I hope so too. The whole reason Max managed to trick me coming on this is because I don't really like saying too much. So that was like, he tricked me. We didn't trick me, but we agreed that if I start from the very start until where we are just at the moment, which was the Flying Scotsman 2020, then that's okay. That's fair game. I'll discuss that as much as you like. But after that, it's maybe going to be a little bit difficult. We'll need to, those guidelines, sensitive information. But we'll see. I'll definitely try and get on a little bit more. It's easier to get me to do this than it is to make content with me. So, and all the fans are always asking for more of everything, basically. So, this will have to do for just now. dirty facial hair and random chat.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Ideal.
Very ideal.
Sweet.